Hey, welcome back to the Hive Doctor, your beekeeping mentor. Today in this apiary, I'm just here for this one colony. I'm not working the rest of them today. This is one of my queen rearing colonies, and I just kind of wanted to show you just a short process of what I'm doing here today. Just one of the many steps that's involved in the queen rearing process that I'm doing. So stick around. So I'm using this colony as stock, genetic stock for raising queens from. This is not one of my cell raisers, but it is where I'm getting the larvae to make my cells from. This colony overwintered and survived really well. It's been here from the beginning, and they made honey, they rear brood really well, and those are good qualities that I look for in a queen. So I decided just that I want more of this. So I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna go ahead and smoke them down. I've got two double deeps here separated by a queen excluder in the middle. I have a cell grid on a frame in the bottom deep, so I've got to get down to that. I'm using the Nicot method of raising queens. Now I've had my share of grafting when it comes to raising queens, and the very first time I ever grafted, 16 out of 20 cells took, and I think that was pretty good. I didn't keep track of how many of those queens were successful in mating. I was too new at everything at that time. But it was just always hit or miss. No matter how good I got at grafting, I could still get like a really sucky take on the cells that were drawn out. And there were so many factors involved. So I decided, instead of me choosing the larva, that I was going to have my cell raisers grow into nice queen cells to use and make splits, or even requeen a hive, that I would let the bees choose the larvae themselves. I'm not going to be grafting. With the Nicot method, I don't see a lot out there regarding it because the timing of it can be a little confusing. But without going into too much detail, I'm just going to say the queen makes it easy for me. I've read this book on Nicot Queen Rearing like 4 or 5 times, and at this point it's finally clear to my mind how to make the system work, and I still refer to it on each and every day of the steps as I go through them. Today is considered day 0 on the Nicot Queen Rearing method, and so I've got my cell grid in this frame, queen excluder on the front. I'm about to catch the queen today and put her in there, and we do it through this little hole that currently has a plug on it, and the back is where all of the cell cups are. So this has already been in the colony for 3 days. The first 2 days I had the queen excluder off so that the workers could gain easy access to these cells, polish them up, make them clean, make them presentable for the queen, and to warm this thing up. Now it's time to catch the queen. She's somewhere in here. I've already marked her days ago, and so she'd be easy to find for this method, so I'm not like hunting and hunting trying to find her. I'm gonna put her in here and then give her at least 4 days before I come back to check for eggs, or hopefully and ideally young larvae. And that's because, like, let's say I just give them 2 days. Well, I'm going to come back and find eggs. That's not going to do me any good because I need larvae to transfer to my cell bars, which I'm going to put into my cell raisers. So I'm going to come back on day 4 from today, counting tomorrow as day 1, 2, 3, and look at the back of this, and anything that has larvae in it is going to show up on the bottom as having royal jelly in there. So that's going to be a nice key indicator. Then I can just transfer the cell cups that have larvae in them in the yard here onto my cell bar, and I've already got a cell raiser set up right there, this colony right here. I've got the queen excluded, I've got the brood rearranged as I need to according to the Nicot Rearing book. So let's go ahead and look for that queen. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and remove this plug so that it's ready for when I see the queen. I can go ahead and stick her in this hole. Got to put the plug where I don't lose it. That way when I'm ready and I have her trapped in here, I can plug it up and she'll be in there for however long it takes for me to get the larva. She may not be starting to lay on day 1. So I need to give her a little bit. That's why I'm checking the earliest 4 days from now. She may be a little resistant to laying in these cups, but ultimately she will do it. Guess what, everyone? I finally remembered to put my frame perch in my truck. If you don't use one of these, which I didn't for years, they are worth it. They're such a simple tool hanging on the side of the box here. They hold 3 frames, especially if you have a frame with the queen on it, and whatever you're doing, whatever task you're doing to where you need to keep the queen safe, this is a great place to do it so that you can work in the hive without worrying about her safety. Okay, first frame. I'm looking for an easy green dot, and I don't see it on that one. I'm going to go ahead and set it to the side right here as frame number 1 on my frame perch. I'm going to work this way. I just have a feeling she's probably over here. And the reason my queen is marked green is because this is year 2024, and years marked with green queens indicate the year ending in 4 or 9. And that also usually indicates that a queen was raised that year. That's not necessarily the case here. This just happens to be the year I started marking queens. Okay, no green dots. No green dots. And sometimes when you are looking for an unmarked queen, she might have her butt down in the cell, her abdomen, laying an egg. And so her big abdomen, which is what we look for, isn't going to show up. I have, in 23 years, seen a queen lay an egg like maybe 3 times. So it doesn't happen often that you catch her doing that. She's got to feel pretty comfortable with you being in her space, I guess. All right, no queen. I'm going to use my frame perch. And using that frame perch, it gives you a way to have room to work in the box. And it also keeps you from putting your frames on the ground. All right, she's on this frame. She is right there. Oh yeah, easy to spot. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is hold this carefully with one hand, smoke these bees down, so that I can bring this frame on top. Okay, here's my queen. She's on the run. I've got her. I put her down in there, plug that with my thumb. She's moved over here, so I can safely grab this cap here and just put it right over this. She's now confined to the cell grid with her workers. She's got plenty of attendants. They can, of course, pass right through this just like a queen excluder. So she's not on her own. All right, so let's look at her up close. She has gone down in this little square pit. She's just come back up. There she goes, moving around. She'll take some time to acclimate to this, and that's okay. She'll probably look for a way out, and then ultimately, I'm not sure what the bees think or do, but at some point maybe the workers make the area feel safe or inviting, or she realizes that this is okay and it's still part of home, especially after I put everything back together and they can kind of settle from me disturbing them. And of course I'm doing this during a nectar flow, so they'll probably draw this out on both sides during this period. Okay, so I just want to tell you guys, I recognize that rearing queens, it seems like an intimidating process, but it's something that's really quite doable. It just takes a little bit of time to sit down and look over where someone else has figured it out. And I know that this is just one step among many. I haven't shown you guys every step of the way to get up to this point, and that was due to technical issues at the time. In the future, I hope that those won't be a problem. Okay, so now I'm going to turn this around the way it was and slide this down in there. But rearing your queens is nice, and you don't have to do it this way if this seems too complicated. This is more of a way of doing it on a large scale, because I plan on splitting very soon, doubling my numbers. I'm anticipating way more cells than I need, and there's a lot of beekeepers in this area, and I get quite a few calls, people looking for queens. So this year I've decided to give it a go again and start selling queens. Okay, that frame there, this frame up against, I like her to be right in the middle. And this frame not terribly close. I want to be able to give the bees room to get into that excluder, that front plate that you saw me put the queen through. And in order to fit this in here, because that cell grid is just a tad wider than a frame, I took one frame out of this box when I set it up. So right now it's technically like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nope, it's still 10 frames, but I guess let's just ignore that. Almost got everything back together. I'm gonna shake bees off of this so I don't roll too many putting this down in. In fact, there's not quite enough room, so I'm gonna use my Hive tool and push the frames over just a tad. Okay, all right, I still don't have enough room, and it's mostly because I've got this burr comb built up on the bottom bar. So with most of the bees shaken off of this, I'm going to set this firmly down, take my Hive tool, and carefully just go along the bottom without squishing any bees and get that off. Boom, done. Now that'll go down in without scraping up against the neighboring frame. All right, that's much better. All right, nice and slow, give the bees a chance to move out of the way in case they're right up against. Okay, I'm gonna remove your frame rest before you put a box back on. I'm gonna smoke them down just a bit. My other deep, I'm gonna smoke them. The excluder's still stuck to the bottom of this deep, so I don't have to worry about putting that back on its own. Done. So in a process like this, where I'm not doing a walk-away split and allowing Hive to grow its own queen, my goal is to make splits, like I mentioned earlier. So I need to make multiple cells. I need to make cells on a larger scale than just on one frame from swarm cells or a supersedure cell. So it's important that I keep track of the days. So when I come back and I find that the queen has got larvae in here, and I transfer those larvae onto a cell bar, and then I install that cell bar into my cell raiser over there, it's important to start counting the life cycle days of the queen honeybee so that they do not emerge all at the same time in that colony. I will need to come along and cage each one once the cells are capped, so that just in case they begin to emerge before I get to them, around day 14 to 16, depending on how warm it is, they will not annihilate each other. So ideally, I want to make splits and give each of those splits a queen cell. So timing is of the essence because I've got a lot of work to do. But in case I don't get to it in time, at least those emerged queens, those virgin queens, will be contained in a cage, and then I can introduce them into my splits the way that you would introduce any queen, gradually until a queenless colony accepts them. So let me know if you've ever tried to rear queens on your own, what you like, what you don't, what you like. Love to hear from you. I appreciate everyone's comments too. So thank you for interacting and participating in this. I especially want to give a shout out to an Oklahoma beekeeper, Chester. He's got his own YouTube channel. He does a lot of cutouts, way more than I've ever done. I used to do some in Florida, but this guy, he's going to be a pro before you know it. He'd be the first though to deny that. But when you do cutouts, you learn a lot about a colony in fast forward, more than you realize. But the reason I want to give him a shout out is because he takes the time to really learn how bees work and how he can work with them. And that is an ideal situation when it comes to learning beekeeping. I've had a lot of students who just ask me to do things for them. And I'm not here to hold anyone's hand. I'm here to guide people forward just like I was guided forward in my beekeeping journey. So remember, you don't have to be a perfect beekeeper, just slightly above average. Don't forget to drop me one of these. I'll see you guys in the next video. Ugh.